much later, but I wanted to touch on what we're here for today, and that's what's going on in our schools with our kids. So I did write that on the drive here very quickly. I met Christine yesterday. She's the one who invited you. She probably spoke. You probably know who I'm talking about here. She works for others. And when she heard me, she invited me to speak. As we had dinner after, she showed me some of the videos of these children in this school. And I mean, I've been in this fight the last 2.5 years, and a lot of it was alone. And I just started crying. And I gave her a hug, despite not knowing her very well. And she was just like, "What's that hug for?" And I'm like, you know what? You are doing what people like me who went to school to be youth counselors are supposed to be doing. You are advocating for these kids when people like me who are supposed to be advocating for these kids are sitting down and cashing their checks because they're too afraid to speak up. So I thanked her for that. Now, I want to touch on my education a little bit. I've compared it to my parents are veterans. I compared it to the military in a sense of and I mean, it's not the same, obviously, but in a sense of we were vetted. We had to be advocates, and we had to be empathetic. And if we weren't, they didn't want us. Half my class failed. There was 50 people that started, 24 graduated. So I don't even know how there's people that are youth counselors sitting on their butts, cashing checks, and not standing up for children right now. It's honestly disgusting. And the only youth counselors that I have met in the last 2 years, I've met 2 of them at Queen's Park March. They worked for Kids Health Phone. And the reason that they were there was because they had 8-year-olds, literally 8-year-olds, calling them, wanting to commit suicide. The number 2 cause of death in Canadian children became suicide in 2020. And that should be of concern to everyone. Half the people I tell don't even believe me. But, yeah, I'm going to see what else. I'm not a good speaker, but there was a bunch of stuff I wanted to say. What else I wanted to say to the CYW specifically. We are trained not only to call out child abuse that everyone knows is child abuse, we were trained to identify child abuse that no one else would consider child abuse, such as the rule of thumb. Some of you guys might have heard of that before. Back in the day, if the stick that you beat your kid with was smaller than the diameter of your thumb, you were perfectly within your rights to do so. People like me, child abuse advocates, we call that stuff out. So another thing that bothers me about some of these staff members that are just sitting there cashing their checks, you were trained to call this stuff out, and you're soft, and you should be calling this stuff out. And the other thing I wanted to say is if you have identified this stuff as abuse, and you're still complacent in it, it is against the OACYC Code of Ethics, and you should not be working there, and you've gone against your Code of Ethics to sit there complacent in child abuse day in and day out. If you don't identify it as child abuse, that's a different story, but you shouldn't be there if you've identified it as child abuse. Thank you. And that is something that has bothered me so much over the last couple of years. And I've said it on live, and I don't know. And people have told me I'm not a real child and youth worker. Why? Because I had to bartend to pay the bills. But my motivation was never money. Okay, so the staff that are here, if there's any staff from the school, I do want to thank you guys so much, because I know in this day and age the potential to be doxxed out of your job is huge. I don't know at this point if it even matters anymore. To me, I would tell any truth regardless of the consequences, because children are our future, and honestly, we have to tell the truth. We have to fight for them. Now, for my own backgrounds, I'm gonna be just completely truthful and open about everything, because that's the kind of person I am. As it relates to the whole transgender issue, I know it's a very divisive topic. It's something you have to be very careful how you talk about, because it can be divisive. I myself, I'm LGBT, I'm pansexual. Now, most people would probably identify that as bisexual. However, bisexual is more you're attracted to biologically males and females, cisgender. Pansexual, it's hearts not hearts. You just love everyone. I've been with trans people. I am not transphobic. In fact, the reason I got into youth work was to work with LGBT youth, homeless youth, But a lot of homeless youth are LGBT because their parents will kick them out, right? I did tons of advocacy. Our curriculum was very much do a presentation on what you're passionate about, teach the rest of the class about it, because we can't teach everyone everything, right? So tons of my stuff was LGBT related. I even posted a lot of stuff on a blog about like Gigi Gorgeous, who's a transgender woman from Toronto. Like, I'm very much not transphobic, but the spot in our schools there's no place for it there. There's no place for it. I just want to say that because I know like this will be the first thing to get put in the media as, anti-trans rally, you know, like they'll radicalize it. This is the only reason why I'm saying so much about this, but I also wanted to say in Belleville when I was in school doing all this advocacy, it's about a decade ago. I don't know about the city because I wasn't here, but in Belleville a decade ago, there was still LGBT people leaving Belleville because of hate crimes that got physical. That's how bad it was when I was in school, so this was much needed advocacy. Back when I was in school, it was a 3-year program. It was very, very tough program. I did work the first year with like normal jobs, whatever. Second year, I did end up dancing, exotic dancing. I managed to spend my weekends in the club and my weeks in the lab, and I was literally top of my class. I'm not ashamed of it, you know, it is what it is. But my point in mentioning this is, as a dancer, you wouldn't show up to work in a thong and like stripper heels, would you? And drag queens, there's nothing wrong with adult entertainment. There's nothing wrong with a drag queen standing in a bar with adults. But I don't know a single stripper that would show up to their job in a thong. So why is people like this showing up in the schools in drag? That makes no sense.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense at all. And to take it even further, another thing that crossed my mind as I was writing this speech, if you look at my makeup today, it's pretty glam. I couldn't show up to an interview wearing even half this much makeup. If I had cosmetically enhanced breasts as cisgender woman, and I showed up even in a turtleneck to an interview, my resume might be tossed in the trash.
Yep.
Like literally. And it wouldn't matter my experience, my references, my education, nothing. It wouldn't matter. But a trans woman or whatever can do it when kids are clearly uncomfortable, and I've seen the interviews with Christine, and they are uncomfortable, and it's very sad. It's very sad. So there's a time and a place, and honestly, I know a lot of LGBT people that are very against it, and this summer has been very hard because this is just yet another divide and conquer tactic of the media. I've had so many people come up to me at Queen's Park and be like talking crap about the LGBT community, especially during Pride Month. And I said, this is not who you're supposed to be mad at right now, because I know tons of people who are LGBT who hate that this is happening. And who we need to be mad at, the LGBT are not the ones putting it in our curriculum, it's the government. Yes. And what's gonna happen? We're gonna fight back and forth and hate each other more and call each other transphobic and all that stuff, right? Exactly. Sorry, there was a couple other topics I wanted to post on, and I've tried to make sure it flows well. But so the other thing I wanted to say is, as a youth worker, your youth bracket goes up to 24 because before 25 years old, your brain is not fully developed in a sense that you can make long-term you can make decisions because you can't weigh long-term consequences. So the chance for informed consent just isn't there because you don't understand long-term consequences. So how are we able to have children consent to something that they don't want to know or really know about what's going to happen in their future? Like puberty blockers and stuff like that. And then to take that a step further, if you guys go on Reddit, or I'm sure it's all over the internet, I've seen this posted on Facebook, there's a lot of adults who provided consent, now not informed consent, and they're mad about the fact that it wasn't informed consent. But you can go on Reddit and find feeds of trans people who are very angry that they weren't told the truth about what was going to happen when they got some of these surgeries. You know, it's graphic and you can look them up, but physically, it might take them half an hour to pee, just other graphic stuff that I'm sure you guys can read as adults on your own time because it's a little bit much. Okay, there was one thing I really wanted to say, and this is what Christine invited me for, was they are vaccinating children. I know I kind of, because he wants me to wrap it up. They're vaccinating children in schools that are autistic without parental consent. Exactly, and here's my point. So this will take like literally 4 minutes. I timed it yesterday. So last year, basically back to school last year, my sister's friend's nephew, who was about 12, he's adopted, he had fetal alcohol syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, he was vaccinated within the first week of school without consent. Right before Christmas, my good friend, her 5-year-old son, who's nonverbal autistic, was vaccinated without consent in the schools, and she was texting me pictures, bruises up this kid's arm, whatever. Now I thought they were clots, I'm now thinking they're holding the kid down or something, still wrong. And I lost touch with a friend who went back to school and started working for the Catholic School Board in Belleville, who reached out to me when he realized I wasn't wrong about all this. And he was like, no, I knew you were right, because I've seen them when I was at work take the entire special needs classroom and vaccinate them without consent. Now, we know they're going to do implied consent with all our children, but you're able to actually teach your 12-year-old run if they come at you with a needle. What do you do with an autistic kid that can't even talk? My son's autistic. I'm afraid to put him in school. He's homeschooled. I sense my kid's autistic. I know that there's 50,000 kids on the autism wait list for funding for $20,000 a year each. I don't want to say that this is targeted, but we know how bad the side effects are of these vaccines, so it might maybe be intentional. Yeah, that was what I wanted to get out.
All right, so let's wrap that up. Thank you so much, Melissa. So she's asking everyone to be mad at who we need to be mad at, and that is the school. Okay? To me, and a lot of the gays against groomers, there's a man and a woman, right? And the third thing is parental rights. Our rights are being usurped. That was the last point that she made. And it's important that we teach our children, just like when we taught them not to talk to strangers, not to talk to nurses with needles. You see a nurse with a needle, you run.